The number one mistake most parents make when teaching their child to read isn't choosing the wrong books, it's following outdated advice that can actually hurt their child's reading journey. And after 10 years as a reading specialist, I've watched this hold kids back time and time again. Today, I'm going to break down the exact do's and don'ts about teaching your child to read, and these make the difference between very frustrating reading experiences and ones that you actually want your kids to remember. And number 5 is one that most parents do because they feel like it's really helpful, but in fact it's actually setting their child up for possible reading difficulties later. Hi, I'm Danae Yaboa. I'm a reading specialist, and over the past 3 years, I've been developing a reading program to put in the pockets of parents like you for brand new readers and for struggling readers. I'll talk more about it at the end of the video. For now, let's dive into the do's and don'ts. Do, build strong phonemic awareness. This one is the most crucial, most pivotal skill that you will give your child to give them the best start for learning to read. You basically want your child to understand the sounds inside of words before they ever visually put their eyes to paper to even try to read a word. Because when your child starts looking at words, you want them to understand that the letters they're seeing actually represent the sounds that they know how to hear within a word. So my favorite way to build this, which is exactly how every lesson starts in our reading program, is do games that get kids to listen for sounds inside of words. So maybe it's arm wrestling and you start the match as soon as you hear the x in Kleenex. Or maybe you're playing the floor is lava and they hop to the next island as soon as they hear the t in mystery. Don't drill sight words. Kids are often sent home lists like these that are full of words for them to memorize. But when we expect our kids to memorize a lot of words, we're just asking them to store a lot of information in their memory rather than just giving them the skills to be able to sound out a majority of those words. So on this list alone, the words in, is, not, and big are all examples of words that could easily be sounded out. The only words we should teach our kids as sight words are rule breakers, like this word, where if they sounded it out, they would get as far as off, rather than anywhere close to the word of. I love this quote to capture this. If a child memorized 10 words, the child can only read 10 words. But if a child learns the sound of 10 letters, the child will be able to read 353 sound words, 4,324 sound words, and 21,655 sound words. So it's safe to say where we should be spending our time with our kids when we're teaching them to learn to read. Do introduce letter sounds systematically. If you've ever wondered what order to teach letters in, which sound should I teach first, blending letters that can be held for a long period of time, like s, those are really important letters to teach first because as kids learn to blend, they're much easier to hold out until they can transition their sound to the next word, like sa. Don't focus on reading levels. I see so many parents at the library standing in the level 1 section looking for a book that their child's interested in. But the problem with this is that a lot of those leveled readers are actually a terrible fit for a child just learning to read because they're full of all kinds of complex spelling patterns and things that the child's not ready for. And so the child just ends up either giving up, asking their parent to read it, or maybe just guessing the words, which ends up just creating a bad habit for later on. So this ties into do number 3, which is do practice with decodable texts. A decodable text is really intentionally written with just words that can be easily decoded using normal spelling patterns. They're much easier to match what your child has already learned and what they would be ready for. Some of my favorites are Bob books, Beanstalk, Starfall, and Dandelion launchers. I'll have a link in the description if you want to get your hands on a few of those decodable texts. Don't interrupt too much. It's very easy when our kids get stuck on a word to just jump in to try to help them, but wait time is so important and it's where so much of that learning happens. It's kind of like the burn on that last push-up when you know your muscles are really starting to build. Give your child a chance to really dissect the word for all of its possible sound variations. And then if and when you do actually need to step in and help, give them some decoding strategies rather than just offering them the word. Do focus on comprehension and fluency. Reading isn't just about sounding out words. If we solely focused on that, kids would lose the love of reading, stop thinking about what they were reading, and it would really start to sound pretty monotone and kind of boring. So as your child's reading, ask them questions. What was that character doing? What do you think's gonna happen next? Get them engaged in the story. And for fluency, find books that are really fun to read together. One of our favorites to read together is Elephant and Piggy. These books are almost impossible to not read with expression because they've got huge letters when the characters are expressing themselves loudly and tiny little words when they're trying to be quiet. And they're also filled with lots of easy to decode words with a few exceptions, but in the most part, they're pretty good for decodable texts. Our fourth don't is don't encourage guessing. This one is actually controversial as a lot of teachers actually still teach this as a reading method. In fact, when I was in Teachers College, we were taught to have the child read the first part of the sentence that they knew, and when they got to a hard word they didn't know, just guess it based on the first letter. But science of reading has given us tons of evidence to show that that's not the best way for the brain to learn how to read, and it just sets kids up for really big struggles later on. If your child has already developed this habit of guessing after just the first letter, make sure you grab my free guide, Unlocking Literacy, at denayaboa.com/unlocking-literacy. It's a free ebook that kind of walks you through how to unlearn or break these habits, as a lot of kids develop these as they learn to read. Do use multi-sensory activities. Incorporate body movements into letter sounds and maybe get your child to draw things in sand. Figure out ways to use their entire body, as this makes the learning go so much deeper. And now for the one that most parents do and their hearts are such in the right place, but don't point at the pictures. If a child gets stuck on a word and you notice them zooming out to kind of check out the picture rather than zooming into the word to figure out all the sound parts, be sure to always direct them back to the word rather than pointing at the picture. The reason for this is because by the time they reach grade 3, those pictures are starting to be taken away, and a lot of kids rely heavily on those pictures. So we see a lot of kids in grade 4 and beyond really struggle with reading because all of a sudden their reading strategy of checking for pictures is gone. It's easy when they're little and the picture is just full of all the words that are there. But for the sake of their future in reading, make sure to always get them back to the word. As I mentioned before, all of these do's and don'ts we've packed into a reading program at readingrescueblueprint.com. And it is designed so parents don't have to struggle to teach their child to read. It's based completely on the science of reading. It has tons of fun games and activities, and it's really easy to use for parents to just sit beside their child and walk through step by step each lesson. It can be done completely digitally, so you don't have to print off any worksheets or order in materials. It's fully set up for you to just log on and get started right away with your child. Plus, within the program, we have decodable passages that they'll target exactly with the letters that they've already learned to read, so you don't have to do the digging at the library to find decodable texts for them. Just head to readingrescueblueprint.com, get your child to choose a fun character, and you can get started right away on workout number 1. I'll be sure to leave a link for it in the description below. And if these tips are helpful for you, be sure to let me know by hitting subscribe or liking this video. And I will see you in the next video for more tips for your child to read, succeed, and totally flourish.